Hi everyone, welcome back to Box of Delights. Today we're going to be demoing War of the Ring, the card game. This is a preview demo copy I've got for you. So it's very much prototype, everything's got demo splashed across it, so when you look at the cards and stuff you'll see they've got demo across the artwork, alright? So be aware of that. It's not the final card stock though. Graphic design, artwork is all done, the rules are all done, everything else, but like I say, this is a demo, print and play if you like. The box is going to be bigger, it's going to have a proper insert, but content wise it's as it is. Like I say, just the card stock is not as it should be, and you won't find demo splashed across it. So it's a 2 to 4 player game. Ideally it plays 4 players because there's 4 factions involved. I'm going to be demoing the full 4 faction game. You can play the full faction game. They're called the trilogy scenario, which is the full campaign of the War of the Ring, with all 4 factions 2 players. So that's what I'm going to be showing you today. So there's no solo variant. There is a 3-player version. In a 3-player version, one of you plays two player, like double-handed. In the 2-player trilogy scenario, with all 4 factions, each of you will be playing 2-handed. The rules for the 2, 3 and 4 player game is exactly the same. It's just whether you're playing 1 faction each, single-handed, or 2 factions each, 2-handed. Okay, got it? All right, let's go. So this is it, War of the Ring, the card game from Ares Games, a game by Ian Brody. And like I said, there is, actually I should probably mention the other scenario. Here's your rulebook. Again, this is just a smaller demo copy, but we'll have a quick look at the scenarios because I'm sure you're interested. So trilogy is the standard game, if you like. The rulebook is available for download, so you can check out these other scenarios, right? 2 and 3 player scenarios. There's one here called Fellowship of the Ring as well. But we're going to be playing the full trilogy scenario. And like I say, you can play this 2, 3 or 4 player. It is War of the Ring, a card game, so we've each got a deck of cards. It's a fixed deck, so it's not like an LCG or a trading card game or anything like that. There's no deck construction involved, okay? Your deck will get shorter as the game progresses because you're going to lose some cards as casualties, right? But 4 players, 4 decks, all right? And say if you're playing 2 player, then one of you will control Shadow, one of you control 3 peoples. Each deck is asymmetric, so they've got different cards in each. One of the players is called the Frodo player, and one's called the Aragorn player. All right, so Frodo and Aragorn, and that's because the main character that's involved in their deck. So in this deck, it's Frodo. Okay, but you'll see all the usual main characters from the game. All right, and this Frodo deck consists of 4 factions: the dwarves, the hobbits, the Rohan, and the wizards. All right, so you'll find Gandalf in there as well. The Aragorn deck, the Aragorn player will have Dunedain and Elf. The elfin factions. It's just 2 factions. For the Shadow player, you'll have the Witch King player, who's got a single faction, which is Mordor. Okay. Got Ring Wraiths in there, you've got Orcs, Nazguls, all that stuff, right? And then the other Shadows player is called the Saruman player. That's his main character. And they've got 3 factions here. You've got Isengard, Southron, and what's called monstrous. Okay, so different types of monsters, different orcs, or wolf riders, all sorts of Uruk-hai, all sorts of things, right? Shelob's in there. All right, so those are your decks. Now, there's one thing I found a little confusing when I was trying to learn was which factions belong to which deck. You might want to use deck sleeves to keep them, separate. But the base game has got everything you want. I imagine there might be expansions, but there's no talk of that just yet. Frodo player always starts, so we're going to give them the first player token. Each player also gets a ring. A ring will be worth 1 victory point at the end of the game. It'll also could be used once per game, discarded. If you don't use it, it's worth a victory point. If you discard it, it'll let you do a little card draw for when you're kind of stuck. This is a victory point game. You're going to kind of have 9 rounds of the game. If you reach the end of 9 rounds, whoever's got the most victory points is going to win. The game can terminate early if one team, so this is a team game, right? 3 peoples versus Shadow, 2 versus 2. If one team is 10 victory points ahead of the other at the end of a round, then it could end early at that round. So keep an eye on your victory points. how do you score victory points? Well, we're going to be using our cards, which are events, characters, items attached to characters and armies, these different cards, to battle over location cards. There's two types of locations. There's paths and there's battlegrounds. These battlegrounds will be fought over and will score you victory points. There'll be an attacker and a defender on a battleground. There'll be attack and defense over a path as well. Whoever wins at the end of each round, say these 9 rounds, there'll be one path. So you start with path 1, it progresses to path 2, all the way through to path 9. That's right, these paths represent the journey through the trilogy. Whoever wins the path and the battleground will score these victory points potentially. So this one's worth 2 victory points, this one's worth 1. The Free Peoples and the Shadows will score victory points in different ways. The Shadow player will be earning victory points by corrupting the path. Free Peoples will be scoring these victory points by winning these paths. But here, that was worth 1 victory point, this one's worth 2. So we're trying to get to a margin of 10 to win early, or who has the most at the end of 9 rounds, 9 paths, okay? Alright, so that's the general idea of the game. Your cards will be bringing attack and defense. You'll be playing them to these locations, and then at the end of each round, these locations will be resolved. Whoever wins them gains the points. Okay, that's the broad overview. Right, let's dive into a demonstration of how this game plays. So we start the trilogy. Each player will draw 7 cards. Of those 7 cards, you'll discard 2. Now, we don't say discard in this game. It introduces this term called cycle. Your deck is only 30 cards, so you'll be cycling through your deck as the game goes on. So don't get too protective over your cards. Some of your cards will be used and recycled, and they'll come back when you draw. Other cards, particularly attackers, are going to be used, and then once they're used for their attack, they're going to be eliminated. And eliminated means they're not discarded, they go into a separate pile. They're kind of out of the game. All right, so you're going to be using your cards. It's hard and fast, right? We're trying to take down these locations to score points. Your cards are there as weapons of war. So we choose, each player will choose 5, cycle 2. So they're not eliminating them, they're just discarding them. They can come back to their deck. So let's say the Free Peoples decides we're not going to use Gimli and his axe. We're going to keep Gandalf and Frodo and those kind of cards. We've got Village Militia. Right, so we'll keep these 5 in our hand. The cards that we cycle, we place face down, kind of sideways here, in a face down discard pile. Why did I choose those? Well, you're not going to understand until we get into the game, but some cards are more useful during different rounds. So if you look at Gimli here, it's got a ring here, which means rounds 3 to 9, he's more useful. Okay, we're going to start in rounds 1, then we're going to move to round 2, all the way up to 9 rounds of the game. So the game can potentially go on quite some time, depends how fast you play. But there we go, let's put Gimli here. He's going to come back later, he's not eliminated, he's cycled. Right? Let's have the other players do the same, and we're ready to go. So setup is really quick. Grab your deck, give it a shuffle, draw 7 cards, discard 2, we're off and running. Now I'm going to make a little bit of space in the middle here, because in the middle we're going to be placing the path and the battleground. There's 2 sets of locations. There's a set of Free People's locations and a set of Shadow Players' locations. Whoever's first player, in this case it's the Frodo player down here, so it's Free People's, they'll get to choose one of these locations, but randomly, okay, randomly. So we'll give this a shuffle up. There's all sorts of locations from, well, I'll have a quick look. So we've got Pelargir, Minas Tirith, Edoras, Helm's Deep, okay, Dol Amroth, Lorien, Rivendell. Which ones come up, the story that gets told is going to be different each time you play. So we're going to be fighting over one of these Free People's locations. It is Minas Tirith. So we put that into play. That's called activating the location. You want to look at some of the Shadow Players. We'll give these a shuffle too, but here we go. So the artwork's final, but obviously we're spoiled a little bit with that demo across it, and the card stock's not great. In fact, this is just a digital print. It's not a proper print even, so they'll be a lot clearer in the final game. Right, we'll give those a shuffle as well. But when we end this round, first player token will move clockwise. It'll be the shadow player. They'll be playing one of their shadow location battlegrounds. This is what we'll be fighting over. Okay. Right, it's round one. So the way it works is clockwise. We'll go Frodo, Witch King, Aragorn, Saruman. And remember, they're playing as a team. They're playing as a team. They're fighting over. So they'll be cooperating to defeat these locations. Minas Tirith is worth a whole 3 victory points. This is huge. Now, when it activates, there's some activation text. The Dunedain player may forsake 1 card to draw 3 cards. What does forsake mean? Forsaking means eliminating a card, putting it out of the game. This is the Dunedain player, Aragorn, and this is where I get a little bit confused. Dunedain is the faction, but you do get, I mean, I've been playing a few rounds just to learn how to play, and it does come to you after, once you start playing, you just get to know who's who. So forsaking a card means we can eliminate a card that's in play from our side of the board. We haven't put any cards in play yet because this is the first location. We can eliminate a card from our hand, or we can eliminate the top card of our deck. We don't know what it is, so it could be something good, and that's gone from the game forever. So I'm gonna take this. Let's get ourselves off to a good start. That's gonna be useful. All right, let's show. Just do it. I might not do this, but I'm going to do it. So the Nenya, the Ring of Adamant, we're going to forsake this card, eliminate it from the game. Okay, so forsaking just means from the deck, from what's called your reserve, which is in play here, or the top card of the deck. So this card is eliminated. We're going to place it here. That's our forsaken pile, or eliminated pile rather. Okay. So we may forsake 1 card to draw 3 cards. We didn't have to, but hopefully we'll get something good. And like I said, you can't be, protective over these cards. They're there to be used. All right, we've got Galadriel, we've got Strider, and we've got the Knights of Dal Amroth. So this might be good. Set us up for a good 3 points. You've got to fight for the points when they come up. All right, so we've put the battleground in play. We've also got to put in the first path. So there's always 2 things here. You bring out the battleground, you bring out the path. There's 3 pathways for each round, right? So in round 1 there's 3, round 2 there's 3, all the way down to round 9 there's 3. Okay, so again, lots of variability in your plays because we're going to just put one of these randomly in play. Okay, let's see what it is, and it is Bag End. So the game begins at Bag End, and once more, it's got an activation effect. It says the Hobbit player draws 2 cards. So we've got some pictures up here. This one's worth 1 victory point to the Free Peoples. This just says it's path number 1. Okay. So thank you very much. Frodo is the Hobbit player, so they draw 2 cards. Okay. So when it says the Hobbit is a faction. So whichever player controls the Hobbits, which is the Frodo player, that's who's being referred to. Now, my guess is that at some point in the future, the reason they've done it this way may be because they might want to mix the factions up a bit. I don't know. We'll see. But there's obviously scope there for development. And they've drawn Fatty Bolger and Riders of Rohan. Excellent. Okay. Now we're going to start playing actions. Okay, we're going to go clockwise, starting with Frodo here. An action, there's a reference card here, is we've got a hand of cards, we can play one of these cards. Okay? To play one of these cards, we have to pay to play by cycling, discarding another card in our hand. All right, so we always have to pay to play. Okay, pay to play. That's called cycling. Cycling another card to play a card from your hand. When you play a card, there's basically 3 places you can play it to. You can play it to the pathway, to fight for the pathway. You can play it to a battleground, to fight for the battleground. Or you can play it into your reserves, and that's an area in front of you. If you play a card to your reserves, then on a future turn, so when the turn comes back round to you, or maybe in a subsequent round, okay, your reserves will stay here, unless something other card effect eliminates them. so another action you can do is move one character or army, so characters and armies go here, in reserve to an active path or battleground. So we might play it into our reserve and then play it later, okay, as an action. Okay. Why might you want to do that? Well, because when these cards are resolved, the cards that were here fighting over it are either eliminated or cycled, go to your discard pile, so they disappear from play. So you might not want to use them, you might not need them, you might be winning bag ends. So you might think, well, I'm going to play a card and stick it in reserve and hold back, maybe play it later in response to the enemy playing something, so there's lots of tactics going on there. But also, battlegrounds limit which factions can go there. So you can see here there's two banners up above and below Minas Tirith. This is a Free People's card. The Free Peoples are defending Minas Tirith. The Shadow are attacking Minas Tirith. Okay, and it says there's two faction icons here. Only the Dunedain or wizards can defend Minas Tirith, and only Mordor and the Southron can attack Minas Tirith. Right, so other factions can't go there. So when I was playing out my hand here, okay, Gandalf can go here and defend it, but I might want to put in the village militia. Well, they're Rohan, they're not allowed to go here. Okay, so I'll place them down here instead. Pathways and battlegrounds are fought over with two different types of icons. The village militia here, okay, they can't go here, they're not allowed, they're Rohan, but if they did, they have crossed swords here, that's their attack, and shields here, that's defense. Attack and defense are used to fight over battlegrounds. Okay. Minas Tirith comes with 3 shields built in. If I played the village militia here, they'd bring a shield as well. We'd have 4 defense. You'd need some bad guys, like these Mordor orcs. If we played them here, they would bring 1 attack. All right. So these are the defenders and these are the attackers. Because this is Minas Tirith is Free Peoples automatically bring their shields. You ignore their swords. The Mordor orcs, you look at their attackers, so you look at their swords and ignore their shields. So at the moment that would be 4 shields to 1 attack. The good guys would win. These guys would be eliminated and they'd get cycled. And the Free Peoples would win Minas Tirith. Okay, that's how you fight over battlegrounds. However, swords and shields do nothing on paths. Okay? Instead, you've got different attack and defense icons on paths. If we look at someone like Frodo, Frodo doesn't have any swords and shields. Instead, he has this defense icon down here. This is not used in battlegrounds. This defense icon is used on paths. Likewise, this Nazgul warrior here has a skull. That's attack on a path. Okay. So here you've got 1 attack versus 1 defense on a path. These icons mean nothing over here. So if this warrior were over here, he does bring some swords. We ignore that one. Okay. So you look at attack and defense on paths over here, swords and shields on battlegrounds over here. So different types of attacks in different types of locations. Make sense? All right. Good. So that's how everything works in terms of fighting over these locations. That's what we're working towards when we're placing our cards. So go back to our actions. Play a card from your hand, cycling another to pay the cost. Move a character from reserve to one of these places. Winnow is an action. You can eliminate 2 cards. So if you get desperate, you can eliminate, so not discard, but eliminate, remove from the game 2 cards from your hand to draw a card. So if you get desperate, you might want to do that. And then some other cards that you have in your reserves or in play have actions on them. Okay. And then finally, you can use this ring. Remember I told you this was worth 1 victory point if it's unspent. As an action, you can get rid of this and draw 2 cards. Again, a kind of desperation action. All right. Okay, let's start then. So Frodo goes first. This is his hand. We've got more than 5 cards because bag end let us draw some extra ones. On a path, the Free People's players always defending. They're always using their defense icons. Shadow players always using their skulls, their attack. When you do path combat, if you use your shields to overcome any of their skull icons, their attacks, then you eliminate. Okay, so characters do the fighting, they get eliminated on a path. If you've got extra characters here that are adding shields that aren't needed because it's just overkill, then they just get recycled. So if 3 people's wins with extra characters, they go back to the discard pile. So not too bad. Same for battles. The loser is going to lose all their characters and armies. They put up a fight, but they didn't win, they get eliminated. If the defender wins, any defenders left standing go back to their discard pile, they get cycled. If the attackers win, any attackers remaining get eliminated. So if you put too many attackers into a battle, well, you've secured your victory, but you've lost those forces, they get eliminated. So your deck is getting smaller as cards get eliminated, so look out for that. Don't overcommit, particularly early on, but fight for victory points, pick your fights. The good thing about adding extra shadow here, if the shadow player wins on a path, they get victory points equal to the excess. All right. So if we defended for 1 and they attacked for 3, 2 excess would be 2 victory points to shadow, and then their characters get eliminated. All right. So that's how you're getting victory points. Remember, our target is 10 during the game. All right. Anyway, we've talked enough. Let's play a character. Frodo's got a nice saving effect. If eliminated for any reason, you cycle this card instead. So your main character, if you like, remember I'm the Frodo player, never gets eliminated. Frodo, would he get eliminated, just gets recycled instead. So why don't we play Frodo and he can start defending Bag End, or travelling the path, I should say. Minas Tirith is pretty well defended. I'm going to wait and see what the shadow player does first. So remember, we need to cycle a card to play a card. So I might, cycle Gandalf the Grey. So Gandalf the Grey's visited Frodo to set Frodo off on his journey. So pay to play, and we'll play Frodo up here at Bag End. Now you do have a nice turn tracker. Again, it's got demo plastered all over it, but we've got a turn tracker here, so we can see whose turn it is. Frodo here. So if you do get a little bit lost, particularly in 2 players, you might forget which was, if you play them side by side instead of up and above, which you might do. You've got a little wheel here that goes clockwise, so you can see whose turn it is next. So Frodo's played. It's now the Witch King player, which is this player. It's their turn next. We'll put that off to the side so we'll remember whose turn it is when. Right, Witch King, what are you going to do? Now remember, we can play Mordor characters to Minas Tirith. That's a big bunch of victory points to go after, but we got to get past 3 shields. But remember, we're cooperating, so if they've got some Southron cards, then they could go and attack as well. But we could play, say, this army of orcs. They bring 1 set of swords. A Nazgul would be good. Now this is a leader card. So you see the difference. This is a set of swords. This is a set of swords in a circle. What that means is the attack value of his swords. If these were attacking this location, we'd have 1, 2, 3 swords. Okay, but this leadership needs to be supporting an army of the same faction. If this guy went here on his own, his swords wouldn't count. That's why they're in a circle. There has to be another army from the same faction, so the Mordor orcs would do it. An army, okay, this is a Mordor army, this is a Mordor character. So he's now supporting this army. Now his swords do count, okay. So look out for that. But remember, we've got to pay to play. Oh, do I let them get this path? This path isn't worth that much, it's only worth 1. But if I played lots here, it would be worth a lot to the shadow player. I mean, if you played loads of skulls here, although this is only worth 1 victory point to the free peoples, if we play an excess of these skulls, we get what's called corruption. Every skull over and above their defense is a corruption. That's a victory point. Minas Tirith might not be worth fighting for. I don't know. I might have to wait and see what my opponents do. So with that in mind, let's play the warrior. Paying to play means I can only really put 2 of these out, so you've got to really think about what you want to do. I'm going to cycle the orcs, pay to play. I'm going to put the warrior in reserve. We're going to put him here and kind of bide our time a little bit and see what our opponents do. Once everyone's passed, so on your turn you can pass. Once everyone's passed, then the round ends. But there is a limit. It's called the carryover limit. You can't pass until you've got a minimum of 2 cards in your hand. Okay, so with 3 cards, Witch King can't pass right now. Okay. If you have less cards than your opponents, you can also pass. Okay, there's an extra rule. Look out for that one. That's a bit cheeky, that rule. But once you're down to 2 cards or less, then you can pass. So there's a bit of a holding thing. You've got to play something on your turn. Okay. Aragorn next. Let's see what they're going to do. So we've got Bag End. We might want to put a little bit of defense on Minas Tirith. We can only play Dunedain characters. We can't play the elves in Minas Tirith. Okay, remember these icons? But we could do something like put Galadriel into play. When in reserve, draw 1 additional card each draw step. So she's good. We've got Aragorn, we've got Strider. I don't think we can put both of these in. Yeah, if Aragorn is played, eliminate this card. So if you play Strider and then Aragorn comes in, you have to eliminate Strider from the game. So if you want to use him early, or use him as a payment type card. The Guards of the Citadel are worth an extra defense on Minas Tirith, so we could really secure up Minas Tirith here with this card. Let's do that. I'm going to cycle Aragorn, because he's not much better than Strider at this stage of the game, I don't think. And we'll use this Dunedain army. The Guards of the Citadel are going to add a shield +1. They're going to add 2 shields. That's 5 shields on Minas Tirith. Okay. Saruman next. Defenders win on ties. So if we had 5 attack on here, that would get blocked by 5 shields, and Minas Tirith would still be standing. So they need 6 attack or something to some card effect to do this over. Okay, and we can play Southron cards. We don't have any. These are Isengard. These 2 are monstrous. Okay, there's icons in the top right corner here. So this is an item that can be carried by Saruman, only by Saruman. This is an army card. This is an item that can be carried by Saruman. This is a character card, another army card. So we have got quite a few army cards, and this stuff here these 2 aren't any use to me because Saruman's not around. And we've got no skulls. We've got nothing that we can hit the path with. We've got to play something. We could put some of these in reserve. The Cave Troll hits path 4, 8, and 9. So we do have a skull, but not path 1. He's not allowed to go there just yet. So I think we might just put something into reserve. Let's use we'll cycle the Cave Troll. We'll put the Goblins of the Misty Mountains in. You put them like this, right? And now they're sitting there as a threat, potentially for an upcoming turn. And at least my kind of partner knows now I really don't have anything useful. I mean, how much communication goes on if you're playing 4-player co-op is, how much do you want to tell your enemy? How much you want to just, that co-op game is really strong here. Obviously in 2-player, you get to see both hands. You know what you can play. You've already looked at both hands. You can support each other how you want, because you've got all the information. Okay, back to Frodo. So Frodo can't pass yet. He's got 5 members. He needs to get down to 2 cards. So you're going to put stuff in reserve. You could just discard stuff as an action just to try and get down. Or we could just put some more stuff out in defense. This can attach to Gandalf. Gandalf the White. When in reserve, draw 1 additional card each draw step. So I might actually put Gandalf in reserve. Yeah, let's do that. So Frodo's going to put this guy in reserve. Let's pay to play. So we cycle this. And we'll put Gandalf the White in our reserve. And it says, while in reserve, draw 1 additional card each draw step. So we're going to draw at the end of each round. It's the last thing that happens after resolving the battlegrounds and the path. You draw back up, and 3 peoples get 3 cards each. Shadow gets 4. But with Gandalf here, Frodo player's going to get an extra card. They'll get to draw 4. Alright, Witch King next. Well, we don't fancy our chances. Minas Tirith might stay strong. I'm going to take an action, now that I've made my mind up, I think, to move. So remember, one of your actions is play a card. Move a character or army in the reserve to the active path or battleground. So I could move the warrior here, this Nazgul warrior, to Bag End. And it does have an extra ability here. It says if in reserve you may use this action to cycle this card, put it back in this discard to add a shield to the active battleground. Well, there's no point. Shields don't do the shadow player any good, but they will do in round 2 because then we'll be fighting over a shadow battleground. But I'm going to put the warrior here. Check the rings. We're in round 1, so we can use it on path 1. Right, ring, path 1. He's good. It says 1 to 3 or 5 to 9. So it's just ring. It's just path 4. You can't use the warrior. So he has a skull. So now we've got one skull, which is going to take out Frodo. That will eliminate Frodo. Frodo will have to use his defense to take out the warrior. It will be eliminated, as will the warrior. Right, this is going to get eliminated at the end no matter what. Now the good thing is, remember, Frodo's got, if eliminated for any reason, he gets cycled instead. So at the moment Frodo's doing a job, he's holding his own here. So Shadow Players kind of registers intention here to try and take out Bag End. Right, Aragorn, what are you going to do? Can't pass yet, we've got 5 cards in your hand. So we could have Galadriel come and help out down here. She's got 2 shields. But Frodo's doing okay. We could put her in reserve because that gives them an extra card draw. We can always move her if we need to, remember, as an action. So pay to play. I'm going to cycle the Knights of Dol Amroth, I think. Cycle. And we'll put Galadriel into reserve. She could go down here and defend Frodo, but he's holding out on his own right now. Okay. Saruman's turn. Well, they can't do very much. They can't pass yet because they've got 3 cards. Maybe they're going to put something else in reserve. They've got this army and then 2 items with nothing to assign it to. So they could just cycle one of these, leave these in their hand for next time. I think we're going to use the Palantir. We'll just cycle that. We'll put the White Hand Orcs into reserve. Pass the turn back to Frodo. Frodo still got 3 cards. Frodo, I think, is going to play Fatty Bolger up to support Frodo. Witch King's turn. So yeah, they've put up a good defense. So what I'm going to do is use my action and we're going to equip this item, this Morgul Blade. It needs to go on a Nazgul. There's one here. So we'll attach it here. We've got to pay to play, remember. So we're going to pay with Fell Beast. Okay. Aragorn next. Still got 3 cards, so we can't pass yet. Well, I'm going to put the mirror in, I think. These 2 are good. If I pay to play, then I've lost this little combo. That's the trouble. So I could just cycle this and keep hold of these 2 cards for next time. But the mirror I could attach to the Galadriel and may always examine the top card of my draw deck. And that's useful because if I want to forsake a card, you can always forsake, remember, a card in play in your reserves, a card in your hand, or a card from the top of the deck. So with Galadriel's mirror, it allows me to make a decision about whether I want to forsake this card or not. That's the benefit. Right, we'll just discard that. That's going to be our action. We're just going to hold on to these 2 because it's a great combo. So that's our action. Cycle 1 card. Now it's over to Saruman. Saruman's only got 1 card left, so he can't afford to pay to play it. But there is an option. If you're down to 1 card, you can forsake a card to play your final card, right? You haven't got a card in your hand to pay for it. You could forsake a card in reserve or the top card of your deck. So that's another useful thing the mirror could do. But as it goes, this only goes on Saruman. We could pass and keep it in our hand, or we could, yeah, let's just pass. Right, we're less than 2 cards over here, so Saruman's passing. So at the moment, everything looks good for the Free Peoples. Frodo's down to 1 card, they're going to pass as well. The Witch King, as an action, we're going to do this. So remember, we've got the Morgul Blade attached here, and it says a weapon, if on a path, it's attached to a Nazgul here on the path. You may use your action, we've got an action, to eliminate this card to add 1 corruption. Right, let's do that. So we're going to eliminate this card. This is now out of the game, so we place it face down. I'm going to put it under the rings here. So cards to the left of your deck are eliminated, cards to the right are cycled. Right? These will come back when this draw pile is empty. In fact, there's effects that can pull cards back from the recycled cards as well. Eliminated cards, they're gone. Add 1 corruption, it says. Well, we've got a whole bunch of tokens. Okay, so use these tokens to add a defense and attack, but also to add something called corruption. Corruption is victory points for the shadow player. So we'll keep a little pile of their victory points up here. They've basically grabbed themselves a victory point. 1 corruption is 1 victory point. So whenever you see that, okay, add 1 corruption, that means add a victory point. It doesn't mean add a skull to here, anything like that. Add a victory point. So they're 1-0 up with a blade in the side of Frodo, perhaps. Okay, everything still looks good for the free people. So passing, passing, passing. Do they want to pass, or do they want to throw this in and eliminate these characters? We'll have to forsake this card to put this in, and that would get rid of Fatty. That's all it's going to do. No, they're going to pass. All right, everybody's passed. So we've ended the round. All right, everyone's passed. If you pass, you can unpass. Okay, if somebody else does something before it gets back to you, you could take an action if you want, even if you passed previously. But once 4 players in a row have passed, we've reached the end of the round. Start player decides the order we resolve these, but you resolve the path and you resolve the battle. It might make a difference, but let's resolve the battleground first. We've got defenders, we've got no attackers. The defenders have survived. They didn't have to fight anyone off, so they get cycled. Now this is the thing that I keep forgetting. Sometimes when I'm playing, I'm sticking these in the wrong deck. But this is the Dunedain. They don't go here, they go up here, right? Dunedain elves go into Aragorn's deck, and that's why different sleeves, card sleeves with different backs might be useful. And the battleground is now removed, and this acts as victory points for the free peoples. They've got 3, so now it's 3-1. Okay, 3 points to the free peoples, 1 to the shadow. Now we resolve the path. We count the number of skulls. There's 1 here. We've got to cancel that 1 somehow using our shields. We can cancel it with Frodo. So Frodo can cancel this, and this is why Frodo's great. He can cancel this. He would then be forsaken, which means eliminated, but instead he's going to go, because of his ability, and get recycled. Okay, we've eliminated that 1 skull. Fatty remains standing, holding out it bag end, helping out Frodo, perhaps nursing him back to health. The warrior, on the other hand, being a shadow character, is eliminated. So he's gone. It's Mordor. He's going over into the Witch King's eliminated pile. He's done his job, which wasn't much in the end, but he got 1 corruption. 1 victory point is good. Any defenders left standing here, they go off to the discard pile. They get cycled. And bag ends victory points go to the free people's player. So we're now 4-1 up at the free people's side. But things can change very quickly. Our hands are small. We've used a lot of cards. We will draw up, but the shadow player is going to show some strength now. We'll do a quick victory check, make sure no one's won the game. Remember, if there's a 10-point margin, there's a victory here, but we're not, it's 4-1. But here we do the draw step. And in the trilogy, the regular trilogy scenario, 3 people's draws 3 cards. So we'll have Frodo player draw 3 cards. Let's go with their 1. Remember, they've got Gandalf the White. While in reserve, draw 1 additional card. So they've actually got 4 cards drawn, plus the 1 card they saved from last time. Okay, so Gandalf's done his job. However, shadow player gets to draw 4. Alright, so it's 3 for the free, 4 for the shadow. So they will get 4 cards. Aragorn player draws 3, but they've got Galadriel's ability in the reserve. While in reserve, draw 1 additional card each draw step, and then cycle a card. Right, so a little bit weaker than Gandalf's, but still good. So they draw 3 normally, 1 extra for Galadriel, and then they can cycle a card. So it doesn't have to be one of the ones they drew, but it probably will be. Elrond's come out. Legolas, Prince Imrahil. Might be a bit soon for Legolas. It's he comes out. It's acts 3 to 9 on the path, so I might just Cycle Legolas. Right, we'll use these rings. That might be more useful. Okay, cool. And then Saruman, they don't have anything here to help them. So they're just going to draw the regular 4. More. We've got Corsairs of Umbar, Ugluk, Saruman's Staff, and Haradrim Mumakil. Fantastic. Alright, but no sign of Saruman just yet. And that's it. That's the end of a round. We've completed the draw step. So let me just show you how you set up a new round. So first player token moves. The Witch King goes first now, and I turn it over to its shadow side. So we're going to draw a random battle location. Let's see what comes out. It is Harad. And it says each shadow player draws 1 card. Only 1 victory point being fought over here, but each shadow player draws a card. Let's see what they get. Coastal Riders and Mordor Orcs. And then path, we're on path 2 now. So we've completed path 1. We stick to this to the bottom. We draw 1 random number 2 path. And it is the Inn of the Prancing Pony. And it says each shadow player draws 2 cards. Oh, this is tough on the Free People's player. They might be ahead, but look at the number of cards now. So we've got the Mouth of Sauron and Black Breath coming out for the Witch King. And for the Saruman player, we've got the Black Serpent and the Candles of Corpses. Monstrous character. So shadow players got high quantity cards. They're going to be doing quite a lot of fighting this time. There's only 1 victory point being fought over. Inn of the Prancing Pony. If Free People's wins this, it's 2. But if shadow player gets this, it's going to be the difference in defense versus attack. Now the Prancing Pony comes with 1 shield built in. Okay, so the Free People's is already winning this. Now on Harad, this is a shadow location, so Shadow's winning this one currently. It's got 1 shield built in. So this time, Shadow player's the defender. They're going to be looking to play shields. And the Free Peoples are the attackers. They've got the Dunedain and Wizards can be played here to attack. So not an easy ask. Only Southrons can be played here in defence. Depends what we've got in our hands. Remember, Wizard King's going first. And that's how the game progresses. Really great. The way they've captured the theme with all these different... I mean, you're going to see all the main characters. You're going to see everyone you want to see. It's great that you've got this co-op battle going on. There's no solo mode, but if you want to go and play solo, just go and play Lord of the Rings, the card game. All right? You don't need this to be soloable. But there you go, that's War of the Ring, the card game. That's how it plays. If you want to see more, let me know. Leave a comment below. Otherwise, I'm going to leave you to explore this yourself. There's so much goodness to unravel in this big, thick deck of paths. Lots of variability in the setup, lots of variability in the different battlegrounds and pathways that come out. Really looking forward to exploring this more. I hope you enjoyed this sneak preview.